Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV Sticks, Roku Sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Joining me now is Aaron William Freeland. Hi, Aaron. How you doing?
Good. How you doing today, Frank?
Out of breath for some reason. Oh yeah, because I did that opening in a crazy lunatic kind of manner. All right, we always like to start with the CFL, and you know I got to tell you, it's going to be an interesting weekend. We've got BC and Ottawa tonight. That'll be a really good game. Edmonton and Hamilton. Hamilton looking for their first victory. Montreal and Saskatchewan looking for revenge. Our Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, and Toronto. So of those games, we're going to the game on Monday. That'll be a lot of fun.
Definitely. I'm very much looking forward to that. The only issue that I can see us having with that is the fact that they're now setting up for the Molson Indy, which means for anybody who's tailgating, your parking resources are going to be extremely limited. There is a special section set up on the website for that. So if you want to check that out, you can always pop by and make sure that you're going to the right place.
Yeah, and they're digging up the parking lot as well. So it's a lot of confusion there. And anyway, what else is new? It's an Argo game. Let's make it more difficult to have fun.
Right? Because, that's the way these things work.
Let's go to the NHL and the Wild trade Kevin Fiala.
Yeah, so this was a bit of a surprise for some folk. I don't think they were looking to get rid of him. They have traded the rights to pending RFA Kevin Fiala to LA in exchange for a 2022 first round pick and prospect Brock Faber. Fiala is expected to sign a 7-year deal with the Kings worth about $7.9 million a year. He's coming off the best season of his career, posting career best of 32 goals and 85 points while playing all 82 games. He's at this point here, bringing him in immediately bolsters the Kings' top 6 forward core, so that's a good thing for them. They're trying to make another run at prominence and trying to, get themselves back into the playoff picture. So it's not entirely surprising that they would do this.
Yeah, they were one game away from the semifinal, so that goes to show. The Bolts, their new complaint is they have a long list of playoff injuries.
Well, as usually happens after the finals are finally done, teams release their injured lists, and you get to find out how dumb all of these people really are for playing through injuries that they really shouldn't be playing through. Belmar had a meniscus injury starting off the playoffs. Cirelli had a shoulder and AC joint sprain and a dislocated shoulder versus Colorado. Kucherov had an MCL sprain versus Colorado. Nick Paul had an AC joint sprain versus New York Rangers and an MCL sprain versus Colorado. Perry had a shoulder injury. Point had a quad tear versus Toronto, which forced him to leave in the first round. McDonough mangled his finger from blocking shots. At this point, all players are expected to make a full recovery, but a lot of them were basically the walking wounded.
The Stanley Cup final is a war of attrition.
Right?
That's what it is.
Every time.
Sabres re-signed goalie Craig Anderson to a 1-year contract.
Yeah, once again, the Sabres are demonstrating how serious they are about improving during the offseason by re-signing 41-year-old goalie Craig Anderson to a 1-year deal. Now, he played for Buffalo going 17-12-2 last season and leading the team in wins despite missing a lengthy stretch with a neck injury. I think they're basically looking for just a little bit of stability on the back end, mainly because he was as solid as he was for them. But as it stands this year, Anderson is projected to be a backup behind Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who spent last season mainly developing in the minors until called up for emergency service. He's supposed to be their number one.
But the pressure won't be on him because there'll be a great veteran there to step in case necessary.
That's the hope. And we're looking at, I think, a similar Koskinen-Smith situation. So
yeah,
we'll see where that goes.
Except the Sabres hope that their other goalie stays. Challenge accepted. Richardson steps in as Blackhawks coach.
Now, for those of you who remember your hard-nosed Leaf defenseman,
Yep.
Luke Richardson was certainly
My
one of those.
assistant coach took over, remember, during COVID.
Yep. So, yeah, the Chicago Blackhawks are one of the NHL's worst teams last season. Uh, well, they said, we're going to give it to this guy. So, I mean, he played for 21 years. He played for 6 different NHL teams. So we'll have to see what's going to happen there. But coming out of Ottawa, he's stepping in for Derek King, who finished the season as the interim coach after Jeremy Colleton was fired back in November.
Yeah. Well, in 1967, the last player to score in the Stanley Cup final was Jim Pappen. He passed away, 82. And by the way, good segue, former Blackhawk.
Yes, he was actually named one of the 100 greatest Leafs. As you mentioned there, he was given credit for Toronto's second goal in a 3-1 series-ending victory over the Habs on May 2nd, 1967. Apparently, Pete Stemkowski deflected it in, but allowed Pappen to take credit to earn a contract bonus. So a little bit of selflessness there.
It's about money. I bet you he got a beer after the game. The
Yeah.
Flames, beloved Calgary Flames trainer Jim Bearcat Murray, dead at 89.
Yeah, so this is another passing of another fan favorite and a team favorite. Bearcat was born in Vulcan in 1933. His family moved to Okotoks. He's still a resident. His family still lives there. Prior to his time with the Flames, he served as a trainer for the Centennials and Wranglers of the WHL and the Calgary Cowboys of the World Hockey Association. He was widely acknowledged as one of the best physical trainers. And a lot of people swore up and down by him. He was apparently a miracle worker. Got to drink from the cup a couple times, and there you have it. So rest in peace, man. He's going to be missed in and around.
The Oilers Condors team has news.
So the Bakersfield Condors, the AHL affiliate, have decided that they are going to sign their coach to a longer-term deal. He had Colin Chalk was originally brought in as an interim coach partway through the AHL season. But as it stands, they liked enough of what they saw that they said, yeah, we're going to name him the 9th head coach in Condors history. So it's good for them. He had a 13-5-1 record down the stretch. He helped them earn their first playoff sweep in team history and made them one of the 3 teams in the top 10 in goals for and against.
So apparently Landeskog's neighbor was the first one to be able to celebrate with the Stanley Cup. They delivered it to the wrong house.
Yep, it arrived there, and I think they kind of recognized who it should have gone to, but kept it under wraps for them.
No kidding. And then, of course, there's Nazem Kadri, who proved that he had Stanley Cup pedigree, wins the Stanley Cup, and he gave a little salute to the Leaf organization, a well-deserved salute, I might add.
Oh, indeed. A lot of people made a lot of hay out of his comment about how pardon me, anybody who thought he was a liability could kiss his derriere. Let's be honest here. He only played 19 games with the Maple Leafs in the playoffs over the course of 9 seasons with the team. When he did manage to stay in, the Leafs did reasonably well in the playoffs, but the fact that he eliminated himself voluntarily from a couple of seasons, I think, helped contribute to the impression that he was a liability when it came to that sort of thing.
Well, he was a liability because the whole team was a liability. He was there with the Leafs when players would get mugged in the corner and teammates would just stand there and watch it happen and just look. Oh, are you okay? Is everything all right? Oh, did you hurt my guy? You didn't hurt yourself doing it, did you? No, that kind of stuff. He was the only guy that cared about his teammates. The rest of them didn't. And they still, for the most part, still have a problem doing that. That's the kind of character it takes to win the Stanley Cup. But he did go, let's be clear about something. Even when he went to Colorado, he got suspended for an elbow. So he has an edge. But here's what I'm going to say to you, Aaron. That's how you win in the playoffs with guys like that who are one step away from going off. Unfortunately, that's the reality of if you watch the playoffs, you saw it over and over again. You saw it, players that went a little too far, but it gave them an edge. And we all know that when you get down to the playoffs, the difference between Team A and Team B is very little. So, intimidation can be a factor, and or revoking it can be a factor as well.
Well, and the hope is, and the impression seems to be that he did actually learn his lesson with his last suspension in 2019.
I
So,
think I think he did. I really do think he did.
yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't know if you know this. Back to the Chicago Blackhawks, Stan Mikita was a player who took all kinds of penalties very early in his career. Very early. I mean, it was to the point where they were just going to release him. Chicago just had enough of him. He was just taking too many penalties. And then something just went, a switch went off, and all of a sudden he became one of the greatest players in hockey history. So if you look into his history, you'll find that that's who Nazem Kadri reminds me of, is somebody who comes into the game with a real chip on his shoulder for whatever reason. I'm not here to tell you I know why he has a chip on his shoulder or why Stan Mikita had a chip on his shoulder. But once they decided to play the game and understood that it was of no benefit playing the other way, when they concentrated on playing the right way, they became very good at it.
No, and again, it is that learning and that ability to learn that sets a lot of the greater players in this game apart. So Nazem, if Nazem has turned the corner on that, he could very well be getting upwards of 9 for his next contract.
Well, we'll see. I mean, like he said, I want to be appreciated, basically, is what he said.
Yep.
So he might not be in Colorado because that's the issue that the cap world has. No team can afford a big contract the next year unless they're dropping a big contract on their team. So I don't see them dropping too many contracts on this team. It looks like a team that basically is playing just under the cap. And, any young player that they want to give a raise to means that, Kadri's not going to get a raise. In fact, Kadri might not get signed. So if you're a team looking for a little bit of edge, a guy that has a bit of a loose wheel, and you need that kind of, a lot like Kane, the same way Edmonton benefited from Kane. A team can benefit from Kadri. The St. John Sea Dogs, they won the Memorial Cup, darn it, over the Hamilton Bulldogs. A lot of my friends are Bulldog fans.
Oh, I'm in the same situation. A lot of my friends are too. As the host town, St. John actually got to put a team in, but they hadn't actually played any games for about a month before the Cup tournament began.
They got eliminated.
Right? So, but hey, we're hosting, so we're in.
Get another chance.
But they ended up downing the Bulldogs 6-3 in Wednesday's final. Now that capped off an absolutely magic run for the Hamilton Bulldogs. They swept their first 3 series before getting to the OHL finals before finally transitioning into the tournament. And it's one of those things where you had an absolutely fantastic season, you just couldn't quite pull the trigger on it. So we'll have to see where that leaves them. Just because I know that there are some players that are overage, and there are a couple players that are actually going to be picked up most likely at the draft this weekend in Montreal. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and they proved the theory, or at least they have shown a side to the theory of rest versus rust.
Yeah, they definitely have. I mean, the Sea Dogs definitely had a lot of rest, but not a lot of rust.
Absolutely. They did really well. Congratulations to them. Well deserved. Hockey Canada, Tim Hortons, Esso. Oh, boy. The corporate sponsorship group is shrinking by the day for Team Hockey Canada.
Yeah, so this comes in light of the fact that there were revelations by Hockey Canada that the cases that they settled, the payments for those were not made with public money, meaning it didn't come from the government. The payment was made from private or other sources of funds, meaning they sold memorabilia, or maybe they sold off property, or they took corporate donations. So a lot of companies are now taking a good hard look at that and saying, well, we're going to be suspending our support for the World Juniors Hockey Championship coming up in Edmonton, pending the results of the federal investigation here. So we'll see where that leaves them.
They have to be careful of. The first thing is, these are players a few years ago, through the past few years. Some of them are actually playing in the National Hockey League now, if it's my understanding.
Yeah, there are wider implications here.
Right. And we have to wonder, and I hope it's not true, that National Hockey League teams that have these players on them helped pay for that. Where did the money come? Bottom line, where did the money come from to quiet this situation? That in itself, You know, transparency for something like this, Aaron, I think we've learned over the years. Transparency is the only way to deal with this issue. Anytime there's an opaqueness to facts, information, leads to the that terrible word, cover up.
Yeah.
And nobody likes cover ups because cover ups are a way of hiding the truth and allowing it to be repeated. And that's the concern, right? That's what I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about the cover up in the cover up sense. I'm concerned over the people that have done something. Have they really learned not to do something like that again? Because nothing's worse than having someone do something, not be made accountable, and then do it again and maybe even worse. And that's the whole thing that I'm against. I don't know where you fall on that, but I think it's pretty close to that.
No, we are not dissimilar in that regard. Now, this Esso and Tim Hortons pulling out also falls on the heels of Scotiabank, Canadian Tire, and TELUS. Now, an important distinction to note here is that all of these companies have said that we're no longer supporting the men's team, but we will continue to support the women's and the youth teams within
Okay.
Hockey Canada. But they're just not sponsoring the 2022 Men's World Junior Championship.
As if they haven't been through enough. But here you go. Hall of Fame, breaking down the Hockey Hall of Fame class of 2022.
So this was an interesting one, mainly because they didn't induct anybody last year. So the thinking was they might have doubled up, or they could have or should have doubled up this year in inducting people, but they didn't. So you've got the usual suspects that are currently going into the hall on the men's side. There's Roberto Luongo, Daniel and Henrik Sedin, Danny Alfredson, and in the builders category, Herb Carnegie. On the women's side, you just have Rika Salonen who's going in. I mean, I can think of a few other people that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame currently that weren't picked, but that's for another day. The issue that we have here is there are 18 people that decide who goes into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and you got to get first place votes from I think 14 of them. There are only 2 women's spots every year, but there are almost always 4 men's spots and 1 builder. And the fact that nothing was done with this regard last year, a lot of people are feeling, and a lot of people have indicated that they thought it might have been better to induct more women, because there are certainly women players out there that are deserving of being in the Hockey Hall of Fame, but that's where we stand now.
We'll see. Everything's relative, in my opinion. Chicago Wolves defeat Springfield Thunderbirds to win the 2022 Calder Cup.
So the Chicago Wolves pulled it off. They won the series 4-1. So that's very exciting for them. It's their third in team history. Josh Levo, ex-Maple Leaf legend Josh Levo, won the Jack A. Butterfield Trophy as playoff MVP after scoring 15 goals and having 14 assists in 18 games for the Wolves. It was the highest point total by any player in the AHL in the past 14 years. So the Wolves are the AHL affiliate of the Carolina Hurricanes. The Thunderbirds are the affiliate of the St. Louis Blues. Now, during the celebrations for this, there were some shenanigans. In particular, Chicago goalie Alex Lyon, who was suspended for 2 games as a result of his actions following Game 5. I don't know if you saw the pictures, Frank, but in his exuberance, he flipped the camera 2 birds.
Oh, jeez.
And the AHL deemed that was conduct unbecoming. Therefore, he will miss the next 2 games for which he is on an active AHL roster.
After winning a championship, do you really have to go there?
I think exuberance of youth. I can see somebody doing something like that because we won. But it's not necessary.
I don't. I don't. I'm glad they suspended him, and I hope he learns his lesson. Looking at the MLS and Toronto FC, they brought in 2 very important players, Criscito and Insigne. A great defender and obviously a good offensive player as well, a key player, in time for another Canadian championship. They play a final in Vancouver, Aaron, where the Toronto team has won. They're trying to win their 9th in 15 years. in that Canadian Championship, if you can imagine that. Vancouver's looking to win their second.
Well, it's definitely going to be an interesting game, and if both Crescido and Insigne get into the game, then that should be absolutely fantastic to watch.
Well, we're waiting for them to get in there because the window hasn't opened yet for them to be able to play. Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred says he wants robot umps in Major League Baseball by 2024. And he hints at expansion to 32 teams. Can you say Les Expos?
I can definitely say Les Expos. He was on with Don Van Natta Jr., and he hinted, Manfred hinted at a lot of on-field reforms that he'd like to see, basically from robot umpires to expansion. The automated strike zone system, as they call it, or robo umpires, would likely be introduced full-time by 2024, he said. The idea is, at this point, the umpire sounds like he's basically just going to be there for window dressing, and the balls and strikes would be transmitted to him via an earpiece. And another option that they have is a replay review system of balls and strikes, which each manager getting several challenges a game. Now, the system is being tested in the minor leagues and has actually shaved 9 minutes off the average game length. And it's because they've introduced the automated strike zone, which seems to be working for them. A strong case for bringing in robo umps can be made, but in particular by referencing Angel Hernandez. He of the 86% accuracy rate, he's definitely making a strong argument for robo umps at this point.
Absolutely. Now, on the issue of the Expos coming into Major League Baseball, needless to say, they're going to be in the East Division. The question is, will they go into the National League East Division like where they were, or will they come into the American League East? If I'm the Expos, I'm going, no, I'd rather go to the National League. Thank you very much. I don't think
I would rather increase our chances of having two Canadian teams in the World Series while having the Expos and the Jays playing in two different leagues as opposed to both being in the American.
I mean, if you ask the Jays would probably say, listen, move us to the National League East and put the Expos in the American League East. No, well, as far as ticket sales are concerned, it's great where the Jays are. But you can see in the playoff hunt and the race, it ain't, it's amazing. It's been like this longer than it has for the Leafs in the Atlantic Division, right? Because this is the way it's, for the Jays forever. Tampa Bay, the team with no money that can outplay everybody. And then you got two of the most expensive teams in the league in that one division. So, it's quite a battle, in that division.
And every year it comes down to who ends up spending more money, and it gets frustrating after a while when, you have the players there. We just can't seem to get over that final hump for playoff success,
The Yankees are the Yankees, buddy. The Yankees.
Yeah.
The Blue Jays, I watched the game last night. It's the first game I've watched from beginning to end. The Jays lost it in 10 innings, and I saw it coming. It's another one of those situations where we see in sports all the time where a team does get their opportunity to win, in fact, get a very big opportunity, which required a little bit of effort, a little more effort, I should say, because they always give effort. We know that. But they just didn't give that little bit of effort when it was necessary, and then came up short 6-5.
Yeah, and I mean they managed to get their 3 runs, but then their relievers failed them. Matt Strom actually gave up 2 runs in the bottom of the 10th before getting Springer to fly out with runners in scoring position to end it. One can't help but think that this might have gone better for Boston had Tanner Houck been able to travel north of the border.
Nope, no vaccination, no can do.
No vaccination, no can do, but, my freedoms. So as it currently stands, he's cost his team a few games when it comes to wins here. If he's in the game, based on the fact that he's a decent reliever, the story might have been different. The issue becomes later on in the season, down the stretch, Boston will be back in Toronto to play the Blue Jays in another 3-game series, which could potentially have playoff seeding implications. So
my freedom.
Exactly. But I mean, as we're looking at it here, if Hauk isn't around because he's decided to be selfish, I think as a team owner, I would be seriously looking at his commitment to the team.
Well,
So
it's his right.
I understand it's his right, but he also has to understand the wider implications when it comes to playing a team sport.
I think he's well aware.
Oh,
The
probably.
Blue Jays announcer Buck Martinez, who's finished his cancer treatment, is eyeing a return to the booth. And if things all worked out well, I'm going to change his name to Luck Martinez.
Yeah, he had announced in April that he'd be stepping away from his broadcast duties for a little while as he began treatment for an unspecified form of cancer. Dan Schulman posted on the 29th that he posted a video, on a picture, on his Twitter page, just saying, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know, Buck's finished up his treatments, all went as well as it possibly could have." He's got a picture of Buck ringing the gong outside the cancer ward there. So it is possible that Buck could be back in the booth by the end of the season. So looking
Awesome.
forward to that.
The guy. Love the guy. Hornets forward Miles Bridges arrested on eve of free agency. Well, there's a way to sign a new contract.
Well, I mean, these things happen, the exuberance of youth and all of that. But yeah, he was arrested on California after a warrant was issued. He was arrested but did not release details on the charge. Apparently, according to TMZ, Bridges is facing felony domestic violence charges. The Hornets did release a statement in which they said that they're aware of the situation involving Miles Bridges. We're in the process of gathering additional information. We have no further comment at this time. His agent, Rich Paul, has not returned phone calls left by the Associated Press, but he is anticipating getting a max contract this next year. So we'll have to see how this plays out. At 6'7", 225, Bridges is one of the more dangerous power forwards in the league. And with his point totals, he's definitely a lucrative signing. I'm just, there's all these legal issues that have now cropped up that may be an impediment to him continuing with his career.
Spurs trade all-star point guard DeJounte Murray to the Hawks.
So, as we get towards silly season and the opening of free agency, these things will start to happen. Now, they traded DeJounte Murray for Danilo Gallinari and 3 first-round picks. So the Spurs are going to be getting Charlotte's 2023 first-round pick from the Hawks, in addition to Atlanta's first-round picks in 2027 and 2025. The Spurs will also have the right to swap picks with the Hawks in 2026. So the Spurs made the deal after selecting 3 players in the first round of the NBA draft. That's Jeremy Sochan from Baylor, Malachi Branham from Ohio State, and Blake Wesley out of Notre Dame. So we'll have to see exactly what comes of this, but it certainly does look like a team is looking to restock the cupboards.
A little heart and ball. James reportedly declines $47 million option from the 76ers and intends to return on a new deal.
Yeah, so this is one of those situations where that $47 million didn't seem to be enough. Now, he did indicate that he wanted to stay in Philadelphia. He's eligible this offseason for a maximum contract worth $270 million over the next 5 years, regardless of whether or not he picked up the option. And that remains the case again after his decision to do so. Now, I'm not sure as to the wider implications of this because I'm not as familiar with the NBA salary cap or salary situation as I should be. But it seems to me that this offers the team a little more flexibility with regard to his salary. So
absolutely. Looking at news starting in Canada, Freedom Convoy has changed what the Canadian flag looks like, not to everyone, but to some people. I think positively and negatively from my perspective, from what I can see.
Yeah. There are some folks that feel that the people, if you put up the flag, I'm someone with fringe ideas like an anti-vaxxer. There are other people who are proud of the flag and how it's been used. The connotation I think that goes along with this, and the common sentiment that seems to go along with this is people who are the loudest are always the ones that are waving the flag to try to defend their position, whether that be good or bad. And how that plays out for other individuals is a different thing. I get upset these days, or at least off put, when I see the Canadian flag on trucks. It's off putting for me because of the link with truckers and with the convoy. I know that's not necessarily the case. I know most of these people are still law-abiding, decent Canadian citizens who are proud of their country, but the issue is that the flag, for some people, like myself, has been tainted by its use by the convoy.
From my 2 cents on that is I just get the sense that people who wave the flag are waving it because they feel other people don't respect it. And they're waving it in people's faces who love that flag as much as they do. They just don't love the flag or love what they love as much as they do. And I don't like when I see, personally, I don't like seeing the flag being used as a weapon, and I think that's what you're talking about. If we take it at its root, it's not that it's on the van or truck or car because they love their country. They're using it to say they're not happy with what's happening in their country, and that's kind of disheartening, I think. You know, I wish it wasn't that way, but that's the way some of us feel. That's the way I feel when I see the flag being waved right now. I don't know whether it's for pride, or for its anger. Does it represent pride or does it represent anger? And that's sad, and that truly is sad that I feel that way. I'm not putting that on anybody else there, not even you. I'm just saying that's how it feels to me.
No, and I can certainly understand that. And again, the flag never really should be used politically or to further a political agenda. It should be used as pride in country.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Are you saying that you shouldn't use the flag to say you're more Canadian than someone else?
I'm saying we're all Canadian. What
Sorry.
makes you more Canadian than anybody else is really depending on your definition.
No, but I'm saying, but that's to me what it is. How do you use the flag to say you're more Canadian than someone else when Canadians overall, we're all different and we're all equal? That's the whole point. So, of course, if you're waving a flag because you're different than someone else, the flag already establishes that. You don't need to be angry about it because that's the way it is, dude, like it or not, or dudette, depending who you are. Soldier charged with criticizing vaccine mandates arrives in Ottawa amid protest fears.
So this is poop. Yeah. So this is a Canadian soldier who protested in uniform against the vaccine mandates. He apparently, it has been discovered that he does have alt-right ties, and was actually photographed and videoed walking with Pierre Poilievre towards Parliament Hill this afternoon as part of Pierre's engagement with the Canada Day convoy protest. So it seems that even those within our own government are jumping on board with this sort of thing. So I'm not 100% sure what to think about this, but at the same time, I can't be slightly disappointed in Pierre. I understand what he's doing in his attempt to garner votes, but at the same time, it's like, come on, man, you're smarter than this, or you should be.
Free speech doesn't mean intelligent speech. It just means free. Supreme Court says expanded rape shield laws are constitutional.
So, and this is something that I believe is important. When we talk about rape shield laws, they were enacted 4 decades ago, 40 years ago, to prevent a complainant in a sexual assault case from using evidence of their alleged victim's sexual history used to discredit them. So if, for example, if someone were accused of assault, of sexually assaulting someone, they couldn't then turn around and raise their accuser's sexual history. Like, oh, well, they've had 40 partners, they were sluts, against them. And that's an important step.
Okay. I'm not sure, but okay. Canada extends COVID-19 border measures until September 30th, including the Arrive Canada app.
So the federal government did say that it was going to extend the COVID-19 public health measures for travelers entering Canada. It also said it's going to continue the pause of mandatory random testing for fully vaccinated travelers at all airports until mid-July. Now, they first announced this pause a couple weeks ago in June. And they said on Wednesday that it's allowing airports to focus on streamlining their operations. What they're trying to do now is they're trying to relocate the COVID-19 testing for air travelers outside of airports to select test provider stores, pharmacies, or by virtual appointment. I guess the idea here is to try to sort of streamline everything and try to help alleviate some of the bottlenecks that they've been having. But we'll have to see how that all plays out. Now, I'm going to be flying within the country, so I don't anticipate having these issues in September, but we'll have to see how it all plays out by then.
I hear you. I hear you. Freedom Convoy organizer Tamara Lich arrested for breach of conditions by the police.
So in Medicine Hat, she was arrested for a breach of her court conditions. They are currently awaiting further details from the RCMP, but again, he couldn't confirm the location of the arrest, but the arrest apparently happened in Monday in Medicine Hat, where she lives. Chris Barber and her are jointly accused of mischief, obstructing police, counseling others to commit mischief, and intimidation. She was given a long list of conditions, which, you know, in writing and in principle should be easy to follow, but I guess she just couldn't.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Explosive. Let's move around to the provinces. Explosive devices found in vehicle connected to BC bank robbers that were killed.
So the chief of the Saanich BC Police Department said that there were explosive devices found in a vehicle related to suspects who were gunned down outside a bank. This was where 6 officers were shot and 2 suspects were killed in a shootout with police on Tuesday, the 28th. Now, they're investigating the possibility of a third suspect, although they don't believe that there's currently a risk to the public. But they did find explosive devices there.
In Alberta Utilities Commission approves 31 million ATCO fine, says in the public interest.
So basically, the Utilities Commission has approved a $31 million fine proposed for ATCO Electric's attempts to overcharge ratepayers for costs it shouldn't have incurred. ATCO agreed to pay the penalty after a commission investigation found it deliberately overpaid a First Nations group for work on a new transmission line. They failed to disclose the reasons for the overpayment when it applied to be reimbursed by ratepayers for the extra cost. Basically, they got busted trying to grease the wheels.
Yeah. Multiple tomatoes, huge tail hit the prairies.
So this is an ongoing series of storms that keep coming, and they still keep coming. But yeah, the first tornado happened near Manitou Beach. The second was near Margot, and the third was near Simric. These storms are actually progressing across Saskatchewan and into Manitoba, so it's an issue. There are on average 8 tornadoes per year. So far in 2022, there are on average 42 tornadoes per year. In 2022, so far we've already had 8. So we're well on our way to getting there.
My diabetes is finally affecting me. I saw tomatoes and I saw tail. Manitoba, tornado warnings issued in Manitoba as storms track across the prairies.
Yeah. So, and again, this is a follow-on from the storms in Saskatchewan. Duck Mountain Provincial Park and Provincial Forest, the municipality of Minitonas and Bozeman, Swan Valley West, and the regional municipality of Mountain, including Cowan and Camperville. As of 7:18 p.m. yesterday, Environment Canada had indicated they were tracking severe thunderstorms, so those areas are under tornado watch. So keep your heads up, people. Tornado watches have also been issued for Kamsack, Kenora, Priestville, Yorkton, Melville, and Esterhazy. So again, keep your eyes peeled. If you hear the warnings, get to safety.
Absolutely. Be careful, folks. Ontario, Quebec face holiday storm risk as heat and humidity build. Been getting hot and humid.
Yep. Now, and again, this is a follow-on. The same storm systems that brought tornadoes and hail to the prairies will be moving into central Canada here just in time to kick off the holiday-long weekend. So we could potentially be seeing supercells and tornadoes over northern Ontario and Quebec over the next few days. There is actually supposed to be a low-pressure system that spawns severe thunderstorms in BC and the prairies that is making its way across as well. So the major chance that we're looking at for severe weather is actually going to be tonight, leading into Friday morning.
Montreal police announce they have a second arrest in a drive-by shooting of a 15-year-old.
So there was a drive-by shooting of a 15-year-old girl last year, and this was in February 2021. That was Myriam Boundaye that passed away. Commander Paul Verreau of the Montreal Police Service said that they've arrested a 27-year-old man, Salim Tawabi, who was arrested Monday. And there was another suspect that was directly involved with the shooting. So they're looking at we're finally wrapping that up. It's been a while. I am glad that there's been a little bit of closure here.
Which sounds similar of the young mother who was pushing a carriage in New York City, and she was shot. Somebody walked right up to her, shot her in the head, killed her. The infant's fine. I think a 3-month-old. Just unbelievable. Here in Ontario, the Ontario government provide more relief at the pumps.
So here's what they're doing. Starting July 1st, the Ontario government is cutting the gas tax by 5.7 cents per liter, and the fuel tax by 5.3 cents per liter for 6 months beginning July 1st. So that is a total between the gas tax and the fuel tax of 11 cents a liter. So based on where gas prices currently stand at approximately $2.02 a liter, keep your eyes on the pumps tomorrow to see if we actually get down to 191. If we don't get down to 191, then you know exactly who is jacking prices, and it's not the government.
A couple of days ago, I paid $1.92 at Costco in Barrie.
Nice. I'm paying $2.02, $2.03 down here, so it is what it is.
Costco, they have a little bit of a discount for their customers. The killer who stabbed family was charged with stalking, sexual assault days before the attack. Can you say red flag?
Oh, you can definitely say red flag on this one. It was a mother and her 2 daughters that were stabbed on Monday night. The son of the family's next door neighbor, who had a romantic interest in one of the victims. Graves appeared in court on his first criminal offenses. He was arrested on Thursday, then charged and released from custody on Friday. Anne-Marie Ruddy is deceased, as well as her 15-year-old daughter, Jasmine. Catherine Ruddy is the 19-year-old daughter who survived both the stabbing and being shot by Ottawa police. So the suspect in question was killed by police at the scene, but not without additional injuries from the police officers who were there to save her.
Yeah, too bad. Response to mass shootings should be political and immediate, survivor says.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that, the mass shootings shouldn't be politicized. But Heidi Rastian, who was a student at Montreal's École Polytechnique in December 1989, said that they definitely should be. The conservatives and the gun lobby have been falling over themselves, claiming that the orders in council were some kind of devious, self-serving political move that exploited the Nova Scotia mass shooting tragedy. While for the majority of Canadians, banning assault weapons is the right thing to do to prevent mass shootings. So she's of the opinion that, the responses should definitely be political to this sort of thing.
I think what she means, though, Aaron, and you can disagree, is that she expects a better political reaction to what happened, right?
Yeah, as opposed to the conservatives siding with the gun lobby over this sort of thing and
I don't
crying
think
foul.
I think the way she means is that there should be a response, and that response, politics is all about voting, and for all that's going wrong and for all that the politicians are offering, they can only attract the attention of less than 1/3 of the people to vote. That says a lot about our political system, and I bow my head in shame thinking about it.
Yeah, it is truly unfortunate that those people that are elected to serve us don't really,
They don't inspire us to go vote.
That too.
I just it sounds like they're arguing about the same 20% of important things. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of other things that if people would talk about, politicians, I, I guess I guess it's just like whatever sounds cool. Let's talk about that. See what that gets us. I know you understand that I have I'm a past person of the left, and now I'm more central. I see that what that nice young lady was saying, that survivor was saying. I want you to know and to help people to see what happened. Stop sweeping it under the carpet. Stop distracting people from what the issue is. The issue is innocent women were killed by a gun carrying lunatic who was able to get a gun unquestioned. And he went about killing people for what? For no reason. I hope people understand what I just said. Somebody went and killed people for no reason. So, the political reaction should be is Frank should be I should be able to vote for somebody who clearly is on the side of that. The problem is it turns into a political discussion, and it becomes the liberals say, well, let's outlaw all these guns. The conservatives say, well, you're just outlawing guns because something bad happened. I say both are true. you know, you're outlawing guns because something bad happened, and you can't have a repeat of it. But anyway, it saddens me to remember those women that were killed. It was a real different situation that we haven't experienced in Canada very often. That was such a terrible visit to a terrible ordeal for a young group of innocent people, just terrible. So I don't know. The prime minister's, I don't know, how do you feel this goes into outlawing guns? The prime minister has said, while in the United States they're taking a different perspective, in Canada we're outlawing guns. Are you satisfied with what the Liberal government is doing?
I mean, the way that I see everything here, it's they're doing as much as they can within the already established framework. It's hard enough as it is in Canada to get a gun legally. There are the three different classes of weapons that you're allowed to get. And you do still have to take a gun safety course to get it. I'm relatively satisfied with that. What I kind of wish would happen would be better enforcement of the laws that are already on the books to punish individuals who do transgress.
I also think one of the things that needs to be done, and I know the police are doing the best they can, and I'm for them redoubling their efforts, triple doubling their efforts, and quadruple doubling their efforts to eliminate illegal guns. Guns that aren't legal are the ones that kill people in inner city and places like that. I know that unfortunately, when it comes to illegal guns, the people who have them sometimes benefit from the fact of who they are. So they are forgiven almost for having them. But if we don't make it a crime to use an illegal gun or to have an illegal gun in your possession, I don't know how we stop some of this stuff, because that 15-year-old kid in Montreal that was killed, I laid dollars to donuts. The gun that shot them probably wasn't even a legal gun, Aaron.
Yeah. No, and the fact of the matter is that there's stuff that needs to be done that within the current existing framework is very difficult to accomplish. It's not impossible, but it still takes longer than it should and is more difficult than it should be.
Yeah, and then you look at the United States, and their the Supreme Court. Now in New York, you can carry, or at least the law is going to change that you can actually carry a gun in public. And the mayor there, and I think a lot of people understand this, is that, road rage, people go after each other with tire irons. Now you're saying they can carry a gun with them.
Yeah, that doesn't do good for anybody.
So my goodness, I mean, it's insane. So justice to hear GOP appeal that could limit state courts. And when I say limit state courts, limit the ability of state courts to ensure that the Constitution is followed through during the electoral process.
Yeah, this is something that is coming from North Carolina Republicans, and they're seeking to clamp down on state courts' authority over congressional redistricting, as well as elections for Congress and the presidency. The justices are going to consider whether state courts finding violations of the state constitutions can order changes to federal elections and the once a decade redrawing of congressional districts.
There's another part to this, Aaron, which isn't in that story, I guess. The other
Mhm.
part is it is when the electors go to the state. The states are trying to change the rules so that the legislature in that state can change the slate the can change. Oh my goodness. Uh, oh boy. Now I just drew a blank. I had it in my head. Um, not the votes, but the way the president's elected. They can basically say, forget how the people in this state voted. We in the legislature know better. And of course,
Yeah, that's one of those situations that certainly will crop up.
electors. It's just in my head. Just it disappeared.
Well, I'm glad you got it back.
Yeah, no, and that's what they want to do, Aaron. That's what's really scary. I understand how the Supreme Court, because it's a super majority of conservatives, 6-3, how they want to adopt conservative principles, which basically says federal government out of our business, state makes all the decisions. But in the case of a state, the politicians shouldn't decide who's president, the voters should. And they're trying to change the rules so that the state legislature can say, we don't like the way the voters voted, so we're saying this guy's the president. Good Lord, so much for democracy.
Well, and that was part of the Republican plan as well, was to seed electors with people that would
Right.
back them, right? So
Right.
it's a quiet and slow moving coup.
Well, it wasn't so quiet on January 6th. And the whole point of January 6th was, if anybody who hasn't figured it out yet, here's a simple review. The idea was to stop the slate of electors being voted on. In other words, the way the election went, so that they would be forced to go back to the Congress. And the way the votes work in the Congress, it isn't a slate of electors. It is instead the states vote for the president. And because the conservatives have more states, they would have made Trump president. And that was the plan. The plan was to cause the rule of law the way it was going to be followed through and completed. Then the default, get out and change the rules. It's terrible. R. Kelly, really quick, only a couple of minutes. 30 years in jail for sex abuse. He got 50 years. I heard that he asked for a younger punishment. I mean, lower punishment. Sorry.
Dude, well, yeah, he has actually faced 30 years in prison for using his celebrity status at the age of 55. That means he's not going to be getting out until he's in his mid 80s. So it's long overdue, a lot of people are saying. So I'm glad to see that he's been found guilty, glad to see that he's got his 30 years. Sad that he's going to appeal, but that's his right. So
now on another issue, we got a minute left. Apparently, the Supreme Court says that the federal government, and that's something that the EPA can't do now, is they can't limit greenhouse gases.
yeah, so what they're basically saying is the EPA does not have the authority to limit emissions across states. So again, they're taking the power out of the federal government's hand and giving it back to the states, the majority of whom, when it comes to major polluters and industries, happen to be red states.
And well, the state that brought it to the Supreme Court, Virginia,
Coal.
It's about coal and turning coal into electricity. All right, Aaron. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll give you another.
I was going to say also Missouri's another one of those that are cashing in on it because
absolutely, it is what it is. You know what makes the world go round. Thanks to Aaron William Freeland, buddy. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, Aaron, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Network, Zingo TV, For Candid Frank Live, other news and entertainment sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Ciao for now.